for inviting us. We love working with you guys. So you're like our favorite
Yes.
agents to work with. But I think you want us to cover hiccups with the closing, title issues, that kind of thing.
Yes,
so I think what Robin and I decided is what we want to start with is let's start with a contract, which is where you guys come in, and then what happens once it gets to us. But one thing that we were discussing and Robin had brought up is even taking this back to the actual listing itself. There's actually some things that are very helpful to us if they're discussed at the time of the listing. So in that case, we're talking about things like estate issues. Who's signing off? Who are the heirs or known heirs at the time? If there's a power of attorney, anything like that. Even if there's somebody says, well, hey, maybe an issue with a joint driveway. I mean, just anything like that at all is really helpful when you're going in just for the listing before you even do anything else. And then all of those things are kind of addressed and pointed out before you even get to a signed contract. So, but once that contract is signed, it comes over to us, and then we take it from there, from that point all the way to the closing table. So our basic procedure is that contract comes in, it's set up, the title work is ordered. And one thing I want to point out is we don't order title work until 30 days out from the closing date, because if you, I'm just going to talk about this like it's a purchase with a lender. The lender doesn't want that title beyond 30 days. So if we try to order a title early, they're going to come back and say, no, I want this updated, then it's an extra cost to the buyer. So to avoid that, we don't order that title work until 30 days out from the actual closing date. So it's taking, I don't know, 7-10 days sometimes to get this title work back. So once it comes in, that's where we start addressing any title issues. And most of those are, we like a clean title, but that doesn't always happen. So there are judgments, there's access issues. Then when you get into an estate, was it probated, that kind of thing. And then we address it from there. So that's why the more information that we know up front, the less downtime or back and forth emails, phone calls, and everything with you guys. So we like to try to avoid that. Robin, you had some problems on a file.
Yeah,
that you wanted to tell them about.
Yeah, I'll to back up what Vicki said, and again, Ashley, Jennifer, everybody, thanks for having us today. We really enjoy working with you guys and appreciate the relationships that we formed over the past years. And going back just a little bit of history, Vicki and I have been together longer than most marriages have lasted. So I started in like the early 1990s, and Vicki just a little bit before that, right?
1979.
Okay, well, we're in our prime. We'll just put it that way.
I'm old. Oh gosh, I'm old.
And
when I started doing this, they were still using carbon paper. So if that tells you anything.
And those roll-up facsimile paper stuff. Yeah.
Well, maybe some of y'all may not even know what that is. Carbon paper, what's that?
I know. And as we know, real estate's all about being in a people business. It's all over the map. You might have, like tomorrow, we've got closings back to back, and they may be the first closing may be a brand new newlywed couple that is so excited to get their first home, and then the next one is a lady that's just lost her spouse, and then an empty nester, and maybe a divorce the next time. So it's a real people business, and I think that we can all relate a little bit to some of those aspects in our own lives. So we try to keep it very, there's a human factor here. It's not just contracts and paper and all of that stuff. So what Vicki had touched on before, when you're making a listing, I call it ways to jump start before the contract is written. And if you're listening, and you all do, you listen to your client and you kind of know what's going on with them. If you hear, as Vicki said, we order the title work out about 30 days. That said, if you know there are some issues that we need to know about ahead of time and get that title cranking earlier, then obviously we need to do that. So if there's some potential title issues that you've already heard about that's ringing in your ear. Is there a pending divorce? We're going to need a copy of a separation agreement or divorce decree that's describing how the marital property is going to be dispersed. Are all the sellers on the contract? Are they local? Is there a power of attorney that's going to be involved? If so, we're going to need to have a copy of that ahead of time, because our title company is going to have to review that to make sure it covers conveying real property, not just personal. Is it the sale result of a death? And like Vicki was saying, has the will been probated? And not only, and perhaps the death occurred in California, but it needs to also be probated in the jurisdiction where your real property is located. So we're going to need a copy of that, and getting that taken care of can take a little bit of time. And we all know with COVID, and who knows what's going to happen, it takes a little while to get in front of a probate clerk and handle some things there. And talking about estates, this is something that people don't realize, and when they do, they kind of forget it. But in the state of Virginia, there's a 1-year probate period, and it's from the date of the death. I'm dealing with one right now. They weren't real happy to hear this, but the mother's date of death will roll up in September. So our closing is next week, and there's a probate period that those monies have to be held in an escrow account by a bank. We have to set up an escrow account with the bank. Those monies are deposited there for 1 year. And that's to allow the probate period to occur for any estate taxes and accounting purposes and all of that to go through its time period. The other option would be that they can pay what's called an extra hazard premium. And that's based upon the purchase price or the disbursement of funds. They can pay that at closing and then receive their funds. So if you are getting a listing and you realize that's a part of an estate and you find out it is within a 1-year period, let us know, and we're happy to talk to your client ahead of time about those options so that they're not hit later on about this happening. That's been a big deal. And it's not us, it's a Virginia thing. So, and it's always we're the people conveying that information. It's not always happy to hear. Well, and one other thing, this was kind of funny. It was a closing of Allison's, and she was on vacation. She was on vacation. So Jackie and I were going to handle her seller side, and the realtor came, the Mr. Seller came, and we have a deed that was made for the husband and wife to convey property to the new buyer. So he comes in and we say, and the realtor was here. The contract was written with both spouses' names, the seller. He had taken it straight from GIS, the realtor, who's seasoned. It wasn't like his first rodeo or anything.
And not a Wainwright agent.
Not a Wainwright agent. Full disclosure, that's right. Not a Wainwright agent. So we walk in and Mr. Seller is here, but Mrs. isn't. So we said, hey, is your wife coming? And he says, no. And we said, well, can you call her? And he says, no. And I said, well, she's going to have to sign the deed. And I look over at our agent, and he's kind of like in a baffled state too. And he says, well, she's deceased. Okay. So here we are. Luckily, if this was not an estate situation, it was marital property. So the property did convey with survivorship to the husband, but we had to step out and do some other things. And, later on, I spoke to the agent because he didn't, the husband signed as a power of attorney for his wife. And in his mind, that's what he had to do as far as conveying the property. So there, if there's ever a question about somebody not being around, or they're not local, or they're remote, just ask the questions, because, the goofy things do happen in real estate.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many people think that they can still use that power of attorney after somebody's passed away.
Yeah.
And, they'll say, well, why can't I use that? And it's void. Once they pass away, that's it. But a lot of people seem to think that power of attorney is still, they can still use it.
Right.
So, so there's a lot of misinformation out there.
and going back again, you think that the listing, you don't have all this stuff come up, but it's really crucial. And if you have a husband and wife and what the deal is, it's just an easy conveyance. But just have your antennas up a whole lot when it's not just your normal conveyance. Has the record owner, has he mentioned to you that he's filed bankruptcy? Because a lot of people think that a bankruptcy can wipe out judgments that appear on there. And that's not the case all the time. Every bankruptcy is a different bird, depending on how it was filed, how it was discharged by the judge. And so there's a lot of judgments that do attach that people say, no, that was taken care of in my bankruptcy. And it's not always the case. So if you know that ahead of time, then we can kind of look at what type of bankruptcy that they went through and have an idea of what we're doing by starting title work earlier. If the property's vested in an LLC or a trust, those are crucial items that we need to know ahead of time as well, because we're going to have to request additional documents to prove that the LLC has the power to convey the property, that the trust and who all the trustees are that own the ownership of the property are still living, do have the power to convey. They're not just co-trustees or successors of a trust. And I know all this is kind of like, wow, but we can, if we know, we can lead the way and help.
Right. And the title company has to approve those documents. Right. So the earlier that we have them and we can forward them to the underwriter, then they can look at them, approve them. Because if we don't get them to the last minute and then they see those and then they go, well, wait a minute, this doesn't have the proper wording. This doesn't tell me what I need to know, blah, blah, blah. So then you have to go back and have something drawn up or corrected. And then that is something you don't want to have at the last minute, the day before closing or 2 days before closing. So if we can get those documents early, get them approved, then there's no issue.
Yeah. We've been talking a whole lot. Are there any questions we can answer up to this point, or? No? Okay.
Sometimes they're a quiet group. Pull the questions out of them.
It's early, it's coffee time, all that stuff. I know. I had a couple of your agents actually text me to say they couldn't join today, and that's great. Maybe they're out listing and selling. So that's
Robin, I think Rhonda has a question.
Okay.
I do. Thank you. I'm not very quiet. How do you actually get the title work done? Like, do you file something with the county or the state, or how is that actually done?
No, actually what we do is once that contract comes in, then we pull the tax ticket, the names, we pull the GIS, so we pull all the information, then we order the search through either Fidelity Title or through an independent title examiner. So then they go to the courthouse, or in a lot of cases, they can do a lot of this online now, but they actually do the search and then send that back to us. And then we provide that search to the title underwriter who works the commitment, who does the lender's commitment, the owner's policy, and that sort of thing. So we don't in-house do it. Because it has to be basically, I don't want to call it certified, but it has to be done by an examiner who has their own E&O insurance. So well, I guess in a way it is being certified. So they're certifying it to the title company that this title is good. They've examined it. Sometimes they take it back 40 years. Sometimes they take it back 60 years. So it just depends on how the chain of the title looks. But yeah, then it comes into us and then we run with it at that point. What's in it. If there's title issues, we review it. And if there's anything that needs to be addressed at that stage, then we of course contact the agent, the seller, whoever we need to contact with the questions.
And I'll add in that occasionally that is the discovery of a lien on the property that perhaps is a medical bill. And it's been my experience that the ladies at Homestead, they will help that seller through that process, whether that's instructing them how to go about calling that hospital or that provider and asking if they will take a flat fee as satisfaction of that lien, and then and take care of that issue that has come up unexpectedly during the title search.
And you'd be surprised how many people they say, well, I didn't even know I had a judgment.
Absolutely.
Or a credit line. The credit line is kind of the big surprise is people say, I don't have a credit line. And we go, well, yes, you do. I've got it right here. And they go, well, I didn't realize that was a lien against my property. So yeah, I don't know why, but most people, they get a credit line that some just say they didn't realize it. And so then we have to go back to them for that information, for payoff information.
Or it has been satisfied and perhaps that just hasn't
hasn't been closed. Yeah, hasn't been closed. They think they pay it off and then it goes away, but it's still sitting out there as a lien unless they specifically request that it be closed.
Yes.
And then they don't release it. And a lot of people don't know that either.
And that's a dangerous thing these days, to have an open line deed of trust on your property that you think is not there, because we all know how these scams are, people forging and stealing identities. They can very easily be surprised how savvy their brains are to access money off of property that has quite a bit of money there that they could reach out to take. And a lot of people will open up a credit line to buy a car. And it's a tax write-off for them. So in their mind, they have a car payment and they forget that this is an equity line. So it can be a surprise to them, that way. Or it's like college tuition. Be surprised at what in their minds, they think, well, because I'm paying it for this, that's not on my property. And those are the last minute surprises that we get that we need to clean up. And Allison goes through a whole lot of, shouldn't say a whole lot, but she's had some pretty tough title issues. And there were some unreleased judgments, and it was a guy who filed bankruptcy, right, Allison? And there were some judgments tied up in that they thought were taken care of, and they weren't. And she is doing some negotiations, as Ashley pointed out, to help reduce the amount of money that he's got to bring to closing. And so, sometimes these people, if they're not getting paid, they're happy to talk about a settlement of some sort that might be less than what the judgment and accrued fees are there to take.
So you guys mentioned the title company and you mentioned Fidelity. Does the title company, they also issue insurance policies, right?
Yes.
Fidelity. Okay. So the same company that does the search, such as Fidelity, also provides the title insurance.
Correct.
Okay. And is there a difference?
And a lot of times that's better, because if there's an issue down the road, it comes up and the buyer has a claim, it's a whole lot better if Fidelity or whoever the company is, if it's Old Republic, whoever it is, if their in-house searcher does it, you're going to get results a lot faster than if they have to go back to an independent title examiner, because then it jumps back to their E&O. And so, yeah, we actually prefer, especially if it's an estate or commercial piece of property, we kind of like for the title company to do the search on those.
In your opinion, is the title insurance, I know that some companies have a basic and then they have an enhanced. Do you feel like the basic is good enough?
Robin, I'll let you answer this one.
Well, back in the day it was, but things have changed now. And I actually printed off, I'll have to, pardon me, this print is so tiny. But the title insurance that we have now they call it a homeowner's policy. I don't like that because it sounds like your homeowner's insurance, but it's an enhanced policy. That's what I refer to it as. But it actually protects our clients for things that happen in the future. The standard policy was presented as something that protects us from things that happen in the past, unreleased deeds of trust, missing heirs, things that have just happened prior to the last current owner, chains of title back. And that's what I'll hit on one of my goofy ones that I have going on. But the enhanced policy protects against forgeries. It protects against someone stealing your identity. It protects against a deed or mortgage that might be voidable because it was signed while the grantor was in bankruptcy. And that was something that they didn't do before. A deed or mortgage that might have been signed by a person underage. You'd be surprised the people that think a 17-year-old or somebody that can convey property because it was their parents' property and they inherited it or something like that. It also protects against future boundary line issues. So if someone is building for you, and this happens at the lake, I do a lot of your lake closings. And if a boundary line issue comes up later because of a adjoining piece of property, then they're going to step in and ensure that based upon whatever the
resolve
plats
the
were, if it was violated on some of those issues. So what I will do, and because this is kind of hot off the press, and it's because of the way we are right now with, people stealing identities, with scams going on, accessing credit lines, things like that. Fidelity has a really good bullet point for what it's a comparison. This is what the standard policy covers. This is what the enhanced policy covers. And it's a very good bullet to look at. And we think, we offer the enhanced, and most people want that once they hear what the protection is there. And it's also good for you guys because you're protecting your client at the best, the best protection that's offered out there. So,
Okay, thank you.
And
does that help?
I think Sherry had a question, and then Dow had a question. So Sherry, do you have a question?
I just want to share with you a nightmare I had with it was if it could go wrong, it went wrong. The seller was a 40-year seasoned real estate agent in multiple states. And when I listed the property, no, she was representing herself. I brought the buyer. And when we went to get the title work done, she had purchased the property as an LLC and had title insurance on it as an LLC. And then down the road, she switched it, I guess, refied and put it into a trust, a living trust. So at that time, you have to re-buy title insurance again, because it doesn't, when you change the name, it doesn't move with it. So going into more, when she put it into an LLC, was it a trust and then an LLC? Anyway, she didn't keep it up, the payments up with DPOR for the company. So we had to go back for months trying to get that straightened out, and her paying her what she owed to the Department of, whatever.
Was it the state corporation commission that she owed?
Yeah.
She didn't keep it up, and then she changed it over into something else, and I think she went from an LLC to a trust, or either she went from a trust to an LLC. I can't remember. But anyway, the title insurance didn't come, she's under the thoughts that I've got title insurance. So now we go to closing almost after this took months to close. And it comes up that it was paid off, but it was never recorded that it was paid off. And the mortgage company was defunct. So now we're in another situation that, here we got all these other things taken care of, and now we can't go to closing because there's a lien on the property and there's nobody to contact to show that it was paid off. So we finally got that taken care of too, but there was a little nightmare after nightmare after nightmare with the title policy. I just want to let you know that when you change from one name to another name, even if you're doing from your name to a trust or an LLC, you still have to buy title insurance again, because she had title insurance with that. When we went to closing, she thought that the title insurance was a local company here, that they would guarantee and we would be able to write that off, that it was paid for. So I think it's all confusing, because I just want to share with you that it doesn't, when you get title insurance, it doesn't transfer when you change the name, even though you're still the owner and you just put it in different name. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And the reason it makes sense is because the title is searched based on the name that you do when you buy the property at the time. So they check you, they check the seller. So if you go and you change names, then they didn't do any type of a search under the new name. So there could be something there. So that's why you can't just transfer a policy over like that. I'm not going to say that had she contacted the title company and said, hey, I'm changing this, I'm going to deed it over into my trust. They could have worked with her on that, and I'm not 100% sure on that answer, but it could be that they could have gone back and said, well, okay, then what we'll do is just have this title updated from this point, from the prior or your current policy up to here, and then we'll check under the trust name, and then we can transfer that policy over. If it's the same policy with the exact same people, and it's just going from an LLC to a trust, but if it's the same people, same property, they could have done it if she had contacted them.
And also,
Okay.
I'll add that it's if the property is deeded to the new name.
Right.
So if I buy a property and then I have a name change 3 years later, but I'm not changing the deed, then
Right.
nothing changes.
Right, correct.
And, to that point, I had a prior client call me the other day, and she wants to vest title to her brother and her sister-in-law and out of her name. And they are going to be not just their personal names, but a trust. And in the meantime, I found out that she has established an LLC as well. So throughout our conversation, I won't bore you with all the detail, but communication is key, and the information just, the more you hear, the more you gather as to what path you need to go on. So I went to our underwriter, who's very knowledgeable. She's been doing Becky's 40 years, I want to say. And
More than that, probably 35.
Yeah, I mean, she's trained a lot of attorneys around here. So, but she said, yeah, we can do that, but this is what we need to do. We need to see her LLC documents. We need to make sure it's only her LLC document and not other people involved in it, and who the trust is going to be. So we did that, and then we pulled the documentation from the SEC, and everything was clear. Everybody was who they said they were, and the title was able to be conveyed appropriately and legally, and there weren't any issues. And the title insurance, she was able to give them title insurance too, even though this was a deed of gift. She was able to go ahead and give them title insurance based on the assessed value of the property. And then I think the people said, well, we know it's worth more than that. So they wanted a 10% increase on their title coverage. So it's always worth asking, and we can always look into see what situations, but people don't think about that. They think, well, I'm still me and I'm going to convey it into my LLC, but there are things that it's shifting, because if it's from Robin Whitley and then I'm going to turn it into an LLC with my business partner, Vicky, there's two people. So now she's come into the mix. So, yeah.
Thank you.
And I thank you, Sherry. And I think Dow had a question or something to add. Dow? Dow, I'm going to request that you unmute. There you go.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
As a new realtor, my question is, where does this conversation begin? I've purchased a number of homes, and maybe it went over my head, or, I'm not sure, but does the realtor discuss this, or does it go into your hands to explain, or the title company explain the standard or the enhanced and all the details?
It's us.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you get a contract, and it depends on what, people want. Most of the time when they find out how the differences of those two policies interact, because the standard, again, only protects for things that have happened in the past. This new policy protects post-closing issues that can happen down the road. And I can't tell you right now what the difference in premium is, but it's not that much compared to the disasters that can occur if someone's
Okay.
identity is stolen or something like that. And I'll say, Vicki, is that like 95% of the people, maybe more than that, default to
I'd say
an
more than that
enhanced
actually
policy.
opt for the homeowner's policy or the enhanced policy.
And Dow, I'll just add, since you are a new real estate agent, that if the buyer is using a mortgage product, they're already going to be required by the mortgage company to buy a lender's policy. So
Right.
adding the owner's policy is a natural conversation then. And
Okay.
this is a premium that is paid one time. So you pay this premium one time at closing and you do not pay it again. So it's not like they're committing to an annual premium payment. So people usually will take the enhanced policy because it is a one-time fee.
Mhm.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Any questions you have, they're not crazy. I tell you, like my husband, you know, we've been in this business so long, it changes. The only thing constant is change, change, change. And like my husband says, I'll ask him, hey, can I ask you a stupid question? And his reply is better than anybody I know. So there's no stupid question at all. We're educated all the time on every file's different. Every file has a different heartbeat.
Well, we still learn something all the time. I mean, even as long as I've been doing this, Robin, Allison, whoever, I mean, it's amazing how you get a file and you go, wow, I've never seen that before. So it doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. There's always something new.
Right.
And usually when it's new, it doesn't mean it's a good thing. So.
And we love new agents. We love them. They have they're excited. You're excited.
Yeah.
It's brand new, you know, so anything we can do to help. And like I said, there's no crazy question. So.
And is this a good time then, Robin, to bring up the software that we switching over to the software?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, we've switched over to a software called Qualia, and it's pretty extensive as far as learning it goes. There's a whole lot of bells and whistles to it, but what it does do, we were sitting here talking about all the upfront information. This thing actually, once that file is opened, it sends out an email to the realtors, to the buyers, the sellers, if we're representing the seller, and it will ask questions. And a lot of these things that Ron and I were just talking about, this upfront stuff, this actually asks the questions. So it's gonna it's gonna send it to you, and then you're gonna create a password. And then from that point on, you can go into the file and actually look at where the process is of the closing. So it's great. You don't have to email us. We don't have to email you. These questions are already answered, and we get the notification when they are answered. And if there's a conflict, then we would contact, whoever, the buyer, realtor, whoever. But this thing kind of takes care of all that up front. So we like that, and then we don't have to, email or make that phone call.
Well, I applaud y'all for employing that service, because the buyers today, they are very used to every step of the way being some sort of portal based place where they can just go get information when they want to, whether that's 2 a.m. or noon on their lunch break. They are used to being able to get information one click away. So,
and this is an app on their iPad. It can be on their phone, anything like that. Where's Amy and Melissa? These ladies open the files. They keep us, they get the file in, they open everything, they order the file, title and everything. But once they go into Qualia, it generates, populates an email out to the lender, to the agents, to the buyer, to the seller. And there's a questionnaire that all parties can answer. So like yesterday, I have a new contract, and it's just signed by an individual gentleman. And he gets the information sheet, and Melissa gets back that, well, I intend to put this in my LLC. So right off the bat, we know that while he signed individually, he's decided it's going to go LLC, and it's not something at the last minute that we're being told right before closing that we need to get together and change the whole, ramifications.
And may I add a small real estate angle to that? If your buyer, and that's a question you should be asking your buyer when you're writing the purchase agreement, because there's, on the signature page, there's a clause in there about whether the contract is assignable or not. So when I get to that part of the contract, I'm asking my buyer, so are you going to be taking title to this property as you appear on page 1, or are you going to set up a trust or an LLC in the meantime? If they say, well, I think I am going to set up an LLC, then you need to be marking assignable so that you can assign that contract. Otherwise, you need the seller's permission to assign the contract to the LLC and take title in a way that isn't on the front page of the purchase agreement. And if you are checking the box for assignable, please make sure you're explaining to the listing agent why you are making it assignable, because they might fear that this buyer is going to be a wholesaler who's going to go out and try to find a replacement buyer and assign the contract to a totally different buyer. So that may scare off the seller and the listing agent unless you explain that the buyer is intending on setting up an LLC and taking title in the LLC's name. Thanks for letting me jump in there.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, Ashley, if there's a loan involved and it's an LLC or a trust, there's extra fees that a lender may have on that because they consider it a little bit of a liability for it not just to be an individual. So there may be some additional cost in their fees. So we've come across that before because a client wanted to do that. And when he found out he had to pay a ½ point extra to do that, he backed off of it. So, you know, and a lender finding that out later in the game, that's going to push your closing back some time because there's other underwriting. They've got to see the LLC papers and all of that stuff too. So it's just key information, that upfront stuff, like you're saying, you know.
And also this tells us who the lender is. And that's always a big thing with us because we like to make contact with whoever the loan officer is right away because in our office, it's like all of us will get an email or it'll be the wrong person that gets the email that says, hey, I'm the lender, but it should be going to me, but it goes to Allison or it goes to Robin or something like that. So if we have that up front, we make contact with that lender and say, I'm your person, so that they can start working directly with us. Nothing gets missed. It doesn't go into junk email and get lost in the system somewhere. So that's another good thing I like about this. Anybody else? Anybody got questions?
Oh, Becky, you were going to hit on the clear to close, what that really means.
Oh, the clear to close.
It doesn't mean anything.
It means nothing. This is always a biggie. The email goes out from the lender to the buyer, comes to us, and it says, we now have the clear to close. So immediately the buyer is saying, okay, can we close this afternoon? You know, can we close in the morning? But all that clear to close means is that it's clear to close on the lender side, that all of their underwriting conditions have been met. And then they start the process of working on the CD figures and getting those to us. So clear to close means one thing to the lender and it means one thing to us. So just keep that in mind because that comes up a lot.
Yeah. And it's exciting. Oh, it's good news. Don't get me wrong. It's good news, but there's still stuff that has to be done. So, yeah. Anybody else have anything before we talk about
a question? Do you think it's helpful for the agent to be at the closing with their clients? Except, of course, and Allison will attest to this, that agent is a real talker.
Yeah, I mean, that's a happy day. I don't see why we like that. You know, we have lenders that join our closing table as well. And, you know, COVID's made things a little different. There's some agents that just prefer their clients to come on and, oh my gosh, we've been closing stuff in the parking lot and people's garages, you know, it's remote closing. Some people aren't scared of anything and some people are, you know, petrified. And so we adapt to whatever we need to adapt to make our clients and our realtors feel comfortable with.
Well, and the buyer sometimes is more comfortable with the agent there. You know, they may have talked to us on the phone or by email, but they come in and then all of these documents are presented to them. And it's very overwhelming if you've never bought a house, you're a first time buyer. So sometimes it's comforting to them to have the agent there, somebody that they're familiar with.
Yeah. I like to think of the closing table, and everybody's worked really hard, the sellers, the buyers, the agents. You know, to me, it's a happy occasion, and it just makes everything solidify, and everybody, the last impression, that's what we want, everything we can do ahead of time to make their end result be great. You know, we want people walking away from the closing table saying, hey, my realtor was awesome, and I have a friend that was going to use them, and Homestead was great, and the lender was perfect. And it's not going to happen all the time. We know, like I said, it's real estate is people. But for the most part, you know, our closings end on a very good note, and we like everybody looking good, because that's what keeps us all in this industry together. So, yeah.
And if
And
there
I
are,
do, you know, COVID's brought a lot of things to the forefront, is closing remote. So we do a lot of that too.
and if there are any complaints, Allison is our office manager. So direct those to her, and she will address them.
Robin's name is with 2 B's. ROBBIN.
You're thrown under the bus all the time.
You threw me under.
Oh, we had one, Rob and I were talking about this. We had a question that this has come up for years. Some agents do not want us to deal with the client. They want to deal directly with the client. Some agents don't want to deal with, once it's in our hands, it's like, you take it, you run with it. We don't want to be involved in it anymore. And some are a mix. Is there, I mean, is it just each individual realtor? Because, you know, sometimes we don't know, and then we'll have an agent will say to us, well, you know, no, I just assumed you would, you know, you would contact them, or you would talk to them about that. So we're not sure. It's kind of like, we don't want to overstep, but then we don't want to understep either.
So a lot of agents, and rightfully so, you've worked hard to get that deal going and solidified. And so we want if you prefer to give them the information and be the communicator between, that's fine with us. It's just all in knowing who wants to work how.
Right.
And I think your software will standardize your communication. And once it's standardized, then that'll meet everyone's expectations. They will now know what to expect, because it is different from agent to agent.
Yeah.
The name independent contractors is a very apt name for real estate agents. They are all different, and everybody's level of communication is different, and their level of control freak is different with every agent as well. Yeah. I hear complaints more often that lenders may step on the agent's toes as to who is, and I've had that happen to me. I feel like it's my role to recommend contractors or inspectors or insurance agents, but there are lenders who truly believe that's their role. And so that can get a little awkward sometimes.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, because that client truly doesn't belong to anyone. They're shared by all of us. So I can understand how some awkwardness can happen sometimes when it's unclear what the agent's expectations are. Yeah.
I think another thing we wanted to cover, and this doesn't have anything to do with the title issue, is what happens after it closes. Some people kind of understand the process, some do not. Melissa in our office handles which we're mostly all doing e-recordings now. She handles that and the post-closing issues. So once that file closes, all the documents are signed. The closer balances that file out. We wait on the wire from the lender, buyer's funds, so forth. And once that's there, then we can record or e-file, and then she prepares, gets the package together, it goes to the lender, and all of that. But nothing is dispersed until that is recorded. And our policy is we like to do it as soon as those funds hit. We like to do it. We don't hold it for the next day or anything like that. We do it as it comes along. So we record right away, and we try to disperse right away. If it's early enough in the day, everything gets dispersed that same day. So that's how we like to do it, and then everybody gets their money.
Vicky, y'all's standard operating procedure being that is one of the reasons why I was all in with you guys very, very early on. It is nerve-wracking, to say the least, to have buyers having possession of the home, but they don't have ownership yet.
Mhm.
And
Right.
that it just takes one time with another type of closing office where that is left hanging over a weekend, and
Right.
some real problems can
Absolutely.
And we've seen that. We've actually seen that happen where it did not record until Monday, and then over, I think it was it flooded the basement or something.
Right. It was a
Robin,
long
wasn't it?
holiday weekend. So.
Yeah, yeah.
But we
so-
had the broker at not Wainwright. They signed off on it that everybody can move in and their insurance is in place, which is because that's here nor there, really. So
Right.
we like to, if we can, on Fridays, that's a good point, Ashley,
Yeah.
because when you're hit with a weekend, we like to cut the last closing be around 2,
Right.
2:30.
Mhm.
That's it, because otherwise we're not going to be able to record and disperse funds, and then
And that's
anything
if
can
it's a
happen over
local
the
jurisdiction.
weekend.
Yeah.
And sellers
so-
want their money. They've closed, they want their
Right.
monies in their hands.
so do the agents.
Yeah. Melissa, where are you? Do you see Melissa?
Right there.
Right here.
Okay. I don't see your face. Do you see
Right here.
her? Okay.
Yeah, she's
Oh.
there.
Well, I just wanted everybody to see who pays you.
Yay.
The most important person in the office, I guess, is who cuts the check at the end of the day. So,
Hey, we sign them. I sign them.
yeah, that's right. That's right. So,
Allison and Jackie sign. I just deliver.
I know we have other points to hit, but I'd like the girls to show their faces for a
Please.
second, introduce themselves, because I think we have the best team in Roanoke. I'm sure other settlement agents feel the same way, but we are truly blessed with the people and the professionalism and the experience that we have here. We don't have turnover. We actually like each other. So we just have a really good thing going on, I feel like. And so just if you ladies would like to say hi and introduce yourself a little bit.
Yes, please.
Amy?
Amy's being shoved to the front of the room.
I'm Amy. I work up front, open the files, get the searches ordered, answer a lot of random questions for everyone.
She takes care of us. She's the guard dog.
And while we're here, I'm Allison Robbins. I'm a closer
Hey, she's on her 10-year anniversary with us this month.
here with Homestead. So again, not a lot of turnover. I love working for Robin and Vicky. I think all of us make a fantastic team, and hopefully any of you agents that are watching will give us a go. I know Ashley supports us 100%, and we've got quite a few agents that do, and we'd love for you guys to give us a shot.
Where's
Jackie.
Jackie? Jackie.
Here I am. Hi, I'm Jackie. I'm a closer and I am the refi queen. I usually handle 99% of the refis, but you guys can call me boss lady. And says
Somebody's
I'm
got to
bossy.
be bossy.
Yeah, she says I'm bossy, but I'm not really bossy. She's bossy.
And Jackie's getting into a lot of the seller side stuff, because she's learned, and this is how it rolls a little bit. The best closer starts at the back at post closing. If you know how the end result and the front end and the back end gets done, then the middle starts evolving a whole lot. And she's beginning to get her own following of agents that like working with her too. She's wonderful. So
They made me do it.
yeah.
It's for your own good.
Jackie, I can relate. Ashley makes us do things too.
Yeah.
Somehow it becomes your idea though, Jennifer.
Jennifer wasn't ever going to get her real estate license.
That was not. I'm like, nope, don't want to do it.
Look at you
Sounds
now.
familiar. I don't
Um,
want to be a closer. Nope.
I think Sherry and Amanda had either a question or something to add.
Yeah.
Amanda, do you want to go first?
So, with this new Qualia, should we be accessing some type of agent portal to familiarize ourselves with it? Typically, if I send a file over on a new contract, I send an email with the contract and all the documents and all the information for the buyer and seller and lender and everything. should we start now using this Qualia and uploading documents there, or sending it over the way we always did?
I think that you can keep sending it like you were, because we set the file up from that point. So just send the email over, then we take the contract and then it's put into the system. Everything's entered into the system. And then from that point, you're contacted. And then you go from there. So yeah, just keep sending the contracts over like you've been doing.
But
Okay,
in
thank
addition,
you.
Amanda,
to
once we get
sending
the contract and it's in our
send all of the
system,
contact information.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It will send you an email and you will go in and create your own secure password. And then from that point on, you never have to set the password again. That's yours to access anytime.
Okay, thank you.
Did somebody else have a
Sherry,
question?
Sherry,
I
did you have something to add?
Yeah, oh, I'm unmuted. I just wanted to say thank you to Robin, because I haven't had, it's been a few years, but I've done a couple closings with you, and I think maybe one may have been a relative,
Yeah.
but it was absolutely the best.
Aw.
You're so professional and such a delight.
Thank
And
you.
I wish that you were right here at the lake every day, because, that's the only reason that, we go sometimes to the lake, because there are people here that know, it's easy to get to.
Right.
But I would love to use you 100% of the
Well,
time.
Sherry, I travel to the lake. I'm at your lake office. I do the
Yes.
closings there. So I travel
Awesome.
to you. So
Okay, I
happy
didn't know
to do
that.
They
I
will
didn't know
come.
that.
They will
Well,
be
I
you're
closed in
to our
clients'
office.
homes. Yeah, I go to you. So that's
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so I will definitely use you.
Yay.
Yay.
Yeah, it's always been a delight. You're just a
Great.
wonderful person to work with.
Well, thank you, Sherry. I really appreciate that more than you
You're
know.
welcome. Thank
All
you.
So
right.
my
Anybody have
Homestead
any-
ladies, we are having exciting stuff happen at the lake office. We're getting ready to do some painting and remodeling, and we have another space open in the back. So there's going to be more space for you guys to do closings.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. I'm
Exciting.
excited. I'm excited.
And just to give you a spoiler alert, lake agents, we are setting up some agent spaces down there that'll just be community spaces for y'all to come and work out of.
Yeah. And hitting on the lake too, because the lake is huge, as we know. I've gone to, like, if you're doing the walkthrough, and I've been asked to go to the house because it just makes better sense than getting in the car from the walkthrough and headed, back off the back roads to your office at the bridge. I'm happy to do that. If I just know ahead of time, I can do that too. And that kind of makes things a little bit easier on your clients too.
If you've ever seen Robin's rolling suitcase, you know she needs business.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just not going to the airport. It just keeps going.
Wow. It's just making you money instead of going fun places.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, if you're going to the airport, don't take those files.
That's true.
Don't worry, she won't.
All right. Do you guys have anything? We're about out of time, but certainly if you have anything else to add, or if anybody has any more questions. But
I'm gonna throw, yeah, we do. Allison, mobile homes and manufactured homes.
Yes,
Can you
please.
touch on that for a little bit?
The main thing is have that VIN number and see if the title's been surrendered at the DMV. If it has not, your seller needs to contact the DMV immediately to set up an appointment to take that title, to have it surrendered and conveyed as real property.
So this is at a listing stage.
This
If
is
you
at
know
the-
you're
this is
listing a
from your
manufactured home.
Yes, because I just tried to get a DMV appointment for a title, and it's at least a month out to
Yes.
just to get the appointment to go to the DMV.
Yes. And your seller is going to have to be the one to do it, because of course it's DMV. They've got to have their proof of identity. They're going to need to give their social. They're going to need to give the VIN number, because if they don't have the title, the DMV can give you another one, and the DMV will do a form there presently to convey as real property. And then when the seller comes to closing, they'll also sign an affidavit for the title insurance company that we record saying the same thing, that it's being converted from personal property to real property.
Yeah.
So very important to get that going up front.
Yes.
And that's manufactured homes too.
Mhm.
So, any questions? So when you list property and you realize it's manufactured mobile homes, then already we know that's when it needs to get started right then, because if you wait to closing, that's going to delay. I mean, there's just no way around it, especially these days with what it takes, as Ashley's point, getting to the DMV. And if there's one question that comes up and the owner is not there, then that's another appointment down the road that has to be made. So it's real crucial that's handled up front.
Ashley, if your agents would like to see the demo of Qualia, that can be set up too. He can zoom in and then go through like the PowerPoints and show the different ways how it helps the agents and how they navigate through the system. He said he's more than happy to do that.
Do you know what I would love to do? I would love to do a small group setting of that and record it so that I can then send that to all the agents, if that would be appealing. Okay.
He can do that. We're so impressed with this software. It's gonna be a game changer, and we're all be learning it together. We started learning it back before the end of the year, and then we went live at the first of the year. So, and now we're adding the connect feature, which just populates all of us into the file one time. So it just is a really good information vessel for all of us as we navigate through the process.
Can I jump back over real quick to the mobile home on the listing side?
Sure.
You can never stop talking about mobile homes. They can go forever.
Look, I had some issues with them, okay?
I know, we all do. If you have a mobile home, you know that you.
Right. So let's say you are getting a listing for one. Other than going to the DMV, that seller going to the DMV, how is he going to know whether or not it's been released already? Like, is that just an automatic thing that he's going to have to go to DMV to check on? Like,
well, if they have
that conversation,
if they have a VIN number, the make and model, there's an actual link to the DMV. It's a $12 fee that you do a search. And anytime you guys have a listing and have questions, you can contact me. I can send you that link.
Okay.
They just plug in their information and the DMV will actually do a search to see if that has been surrendered. And at that point, they would get a printout.
Okay. So they may not actually have to go in person. We'll do the search first.
Right. If the title's been surrendered in the past, then the DMV would have a record of that. If not, then the process needs to start of getting it going to go to have it done.
Perfect. Thank you.
Because it may be the third owner of the mobile home or manufactured home and they just have no clue. And sometimes those VIN numbers are not obvious. You know, they're up underneath the property or behind some panel of a cabinet that's been replaced. So, you know, appraisers can sometimes track those VIN numbers down if there's a loan involved. So they're just different birds.
Right. Thank you. I didn't know about the DMV link.
Bye, Jackie.
Headed to a closing.
Bye, Jackie.
Bye, Jackie.
Thank you so much. All right. If you guys have any more points, great. Otherwise, we can wrap it up.
I just want to say something real quick. Just when you guys send over the contract, like I know the one gal lost you there, but you know, we really appreciate you sending us the contact information for the buyer and seller. Just getting a contract with just names on it doesn't do a lot of good. So any of that info you can send over is great.
Yeah. And that's a good point. You know, nothing's filled out on personal information on contracts anymore. And that's a security purpose. So sometimes we'll get a contract that says, here's a new one for you. Can't wait to see you. And that's all we get. But I think the Qualia Connect thing will help a whole lot.
Can we add to that your real estate office also likes to get all of that information as well. Sometimes we'll get an amendment and it'll just say, here's an amendment for the file. Okay. So, you know, we would love for you to reference every time you send us something.
Yeah.
Buyer name, seller name, address. That would be very helpful.
Yeah. I know. And while we like to think we're all the only one, you know,
yes,
we've had somebody drop off keys and said, this is for my keys for my closing tomorrow. And they're not in anything. So it's like, which closing is that for? But,
so creature of habit, I just automatically send my contracts to Allison because she normally does my closings. Should we be sending it to somebody else?
No.
Just keep sending it
same cycle. Okay. Keep your same cycle. Right. Don't change anything there. We'll internally get that.
You've got your routine. We've got ours. So keep doing the same thing that you've been doing.
And a brand new agent that hasn't had a closing yet and they want to use you, how do they go about doing that?
Have them call me.
Just call and
Yeah,
you'll
just call.
then you'll give them to
Talk about
somebody.
it. Yeah, I like the
Okay.
personal thing, you know, I'm old school. I still like to talk to people on the phone and that kind of stuff. And I just think it is a real good door opener for us to talk to each other, learn how they like to get started, what questions they may have, and just kind of have an intimate conversation. And then we'll go from there. So, yeah.
Perfect. Well, I absolutely love you ladies. I do.
Love you too.
Ashley, thank you so much for having us. This
I
has
am
been really
so
fun.
Delighted
and
that y'all.
we need to do more of this. We really do. So.
It was incredibly informational, and I truly, truly appreciate it, and as well as appreciate the relationship I've built with you guys over the years. I only used you because Jennifer said you should try Homestead Settlement. They did my closing, and it was flawless.
That's how I got in. I got in because Ashley said, use Homestead, and so that's where the only place I've been.
And we love
Thank
Donna.
you.
We love
Thank
you.
you.
And I'll be seeing you twice this month. So
Donna.
That's awesome.
Donna
Good for
is
you.
super excited.
So you're going to get to know Melissa a lot as she cuts your checks. So.
that's right.
Good.
Can't wait, Melissa.